Good morning. Hey, I'm sorry I was a little bit late, so you might have touched on this already. My name is Scott Robinson. I'm from Bay Area, San Francisco, and I've been doing this for about 3/4 of a year, maybe up to a year. People have noticed I've lost fat around my face. I've noticed I've lost subcutaneous fat, but it's the visceral fat that's really killing me. I just can't figure out what the magic switch is to work on that. Any help?
When you say visceral fat, you mean gut, right? That's most likely cortisol. Again, hormones play a big part in this, and one of the reasons that the paleo diet is so successful is because it decreases a lot of the inflammatory cascades, which cortisol elevates. So, again, my suggestion would be good functional medicine doctor doing it, do an ASI. There could be some adrenal issues going in there, some mindfulness training, relaxation, those types of things to lower your cortisol. If you're holding fat around your gut, and you look to be over 40, so if you're once men kind of get over 40, you start to notice a pretty significant decline in testosterone. It's a pretty significant increase in sex hormone binding globulin, which decreases free testosterone. So I would say a combination, again, of hormones, probably primarily cortisol, but probably testosterone is a component as well. And if you look at the research on clinical interventions with testosterone, the primary place that guys lose fat is in their abdomen.
Yeah, to Dr. Parsley's point, I think that I was just trying to tag on to that. The abdominal fat, the sort of central obesity, is very closely connected to kind of hormone profiles. And I think going one step beyond that, you use the phrase kind of visceral fat, and to me, I think of that as intra-abdominal fat within the, so it's not subcutaneous, that happens to be in the abdominal area. Yeah. And in my mind, that's very, very directly connected to permeability of the gut, and especially if you're talking about a lot of food antigens or other environmental antigens getting through a hyperpermeable gut into the portal vein, getting into it, and the liver having to kind of do some additional cleanup there, then you can end up with some additional inflammatory and fat deposition in the liver itself and around that. So to me, I think the gut is a really key component of that visceral fat deposition. And that's one of those things where getting onto a paleo type diet is the first major and a very important step, but going beyond that and looking at screening for pathogens, screening for dysbiosis or candida or some other parasites that would continue to contribute to that gut inflammation and permeability, thus sort of exacerbating or just preventing improvement in the visceral adiposity, I think is a big piece there too.
Chris, go ahead.
You might also consider things that maximize insulin sensitivity, like high-intensity strength training. Intermittent fasting is another option, or alternate day fasting. Those can really improve leptin and insulin signaling. Of course, if you have adrenal fatigue syndrome type of symptoms where you're really exhausted, you're not sleeping well, you want to be careful with those strategies because they can actually exacerbate it. So it depends where you are on that continuum. If you're relatively robust and energy levels are good and you're sleeping well, then I would go in the direction of the higher intensity strength training and intermittent fasting or possibly alternate day fasting. But if you're feeling pretty run down and not sleeping well, then I wouldn't do that.
And one final thing is that visceral fat, you're discussing the omental fat, which is underneath the muscle. That's absolutely the last fat you will lose on any diet, male or female. That's end of the road. You have to clean up everything first, and that's the last thing to go.
Yeah, and in comments for the hormone issues, the lower testosterone, lower growth hormone can often be dramatically improved by strength training, interval training.
The other thing, when it comes to that sort of last bit of resistant fat loss, and it may or may not, it just may not have come off of you yet, but you might consider undiagnosed food sensitivity issues, anything that could be possibly generating an inflammatory response, an undiagnosed inflammatory response. And with respect to the dysbiosis, you could do an expanded GI panel and look for the presence of overgrowth of things like Firmicutes, and that kind of thing. That tends to lend itself more to resistant weight loss. So